And just before we get to the panel discussion and sort of wrap up the day, I want to invite Wilko Schwarting up, Senior Director at Symbotic, one of the sponsors of the workshop, to say a few brief words about Symbotic and also present our Best Poster Award. So, Wilko, please.
Yep, thank you for the kind introduction. All right, yeah, thank you everybody thank you for the kind introduction. It's awesome to be here, and it's an amazing workshop, I would say. I want to kind of motivate why Symbotic is, the problems that we face with Symbotic are actually quite relevant to this community. And I think the best way to start with that is with the video of what we actually do. So at Symbotic, we do warehouse automation, end to end. Really what that means that you get a pallet of product, you depalletize it, as you can see here in the video, you singulate it, you scan it, and you put it into the structure. In the structure, we have these nice little Symbots, which are these small little cars, which drive around inside the structure at a very high speed, and basically place these cases into the structure and retrieve them back. Then afterwards, they get palletized again. And this is like a rough overview video. I'll go into a couple of the details of this, but it just shows the end-to-end operation. Yeah, one of the key elements, of course, is that we're faster than this. And you can imagine, because our Symbots can drive very fast, that even if you have a very large warehouse, you can basically make the temporal expanse very small. So in comparison to a traditional warehouse where you have to basically access multiple layers with a forklift, let's say, or you have very non-dense storage. On the right side, you see our warehouse where you basically have automated inbound and outbound cells and a very dense structure where we operate in. And the key element of this is our Symbots, which is basically what you see on the left, like a small vehicle which traverses into the aisles of the storage structure, but also goes across the transfer deck. And these basically get fed by the inbound cells. Let's say we depalletize while the system sees, and on the outbound cells, we start palletizing again. And to just motivate this, why this is a classical task and motion planning problem, it's really a schedule for multiple agents where they need to pick up cases at the diffs, transfer them into over the transfer deck into the aisles, place them into a shelf, and then when our customer wants to retrieve them again, goes to the shelf, picks them up, and brings them to the palletizers. And one of the key elements here is that you can basically do random access. You can think about this as like a hard drive. you can do random access with very many distributed agents at once and get the palette built in about 5 minutes. So it's industry leading for this, and it's very important. And again, like this is a classical multi-agent task and motion problem. But I would say that there is a strong need for integrating something that makes it more general, right? So we are kind of like in the corner of a little bit of success where we are in the case where 99.99% of our operations work just fine. But it's really interesting where our system fails, and you cannot really engineer against these like 0.001% of the error cases. So I think this is actually one of the most interesting cases where you can like literally prove for real generalization, because all of the things that we see are complete outliers. You can, for example, imagine that the cookie box fell off of one of these Symbots, and we didn't really see it because we don't have the sensors, or like it's hard to sense. And suddenly they basically get rubbed down onto the transfer deck, which is usually pretty rough. But in these cases, we suddenly have very fine cookie dust on it, and the Symbot starts sliding left and right. Right? If you don't know anything about this, then you can do all the nicest task and motion planning about this, but you can't really figure it out what to do with it, right? And again, this is just like one example of like what can happen that you really never think about in the first place. And basically all the issues that we see at these like 1e-6 error rates are like just complete outliers. And in general, I would say this is not just the case for the Symbots themselves, but also for our inbound and outbound cells. In the inbound side, you basically receive cases in a fairly structured way where you can depelletize them. But even there, you get interesting cases where some cases are stuck to each other because the customer or the supplier used too much glue, or they use some form of like tape. So suddenly cases are starting to dangle around. And these are all the kinds of things that you have to solve and that you don't really think about when you engineer the system. And that's why I think large language models are actually a very nice tool to kind of get to this level of generalization. So after the system has inbound the cases and they are brought into the buffer, into the lift, the Symbots take them and basically bring them into the shelves. And they go over a transfer deck where it's actually quite busy. So here we basically retrieve a case from storage with this little lift. So we have multiple layers of lifts. Here you can basically see all the Symbots that have to navigate and coordinate with each other. And like it's actually a very hard task and motion planning problem because we have 500 to 1,000 agents at once in most of these structures. And here you can see like how fast they have to go to pick up the cases in the aisles, which is really a key benefit of making the system work very fast. Also, the same thing is really true on the outbound side. So on the outbound side, it's actually quite interesting because we need to build pallets which are made out of any type of SKU, so basically any type of different case. And the tricky thing is that we have to build pallets about 10 foot high. And so you basically accumulate all kinds of errors while doing so, and you have to compensate for these over time. Again, here you may not think that this is like a hard problem, because we do a fairly good job at like doing this like fairly accurately 99.99% of the time. But when things go wrong, it actually becomes interesting. And on any given day, we palletize about 10 million cases. So you can imagine, even with an accuracy of like 99.999%, we still have a lot of issues to solve. Awesome. That's what I wanted to say about Symbotic. Thank you, everybody. With that, I would like to actually get to the most interesting part of what I'm talking about, and that's the award nomination for the best poster. So we were actually quite fortunate to have very good posters this year in this session. So what we did is we started with a couple of finalists, which did very good work. And so the finalists here are the multi-level reasoning paper for delicate assembly using dual arms, by Philip Huan, Huishuan Liu, Shobit Agarwal, Jiuyang Li, Changyu Liu. And also we've selected as finalists verifiably following complex robot instructions with foundation models by Benedict Porti, Eric Rosen, Stephanie Telex, and George Konidaris. And with that, we have one final winner, and we've selected Skill Wrapper for autonomously learning interpretable skill abstractions with foundation models by Ji Young, Shreyas Sundar Raman, Bennett Hedegaard, Hao Tian Fu, Lin Feng Zhao, Stephanie Telex, George Coney Davis, David Paulius, and Naman Cha. Right, congratulations to the winners and the finalists. And with that, I would like to also thank the organizers, of course, for doing a great job to bring this together. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Wilko, for the presentation and for your sponsorship of the workshop.
Of course, thank you.
So